ARK Survival Ascended has released, with new improved graphics, map updates, dino behaviours, and all importantly, baby dinos. So I decided, what better than to start with a 100 days challenge to see how well I can do in the new version. We woke up on the sunny beaches of ARK Survival Ascended, ready to begin my 100-day journey. I must preface by saying the game quality is low for the first few days, because I was playing on my old PC, but let's get into the video. It may have been a new remaster, but the same old brutality was still here, as an innocent dodo was immediately attacked by a pair of dinos, reinforcing the idea that this 100 days would just be as brutal, if not more, than the old game. With that fight over, I began to harvest stone and punch a tree for wood and thatch, so I could make my very first tool, a stone pick. I farmed some bushes, and it turns out they were giving me these all new brand types of berries. We had a green berry called Verdberry, a purple one called Maganberry, a blue one called Cyanberry, but even with the new berries wouldn't feed me long term, and thankfully a couple compies attacked at this time, who I killed with my new stone pickaxe and was able to harvest the bodies to get raw meat, which I'll be able to cook up at a later point. Next, I found a few dodos wandering about, and my very first tame on this game had to be a dodo. It would feel wrong for it not to be. I searched around the few and settled for this one with orange wings. I punched it to knock it out, but then was attacked by another dodo, something which just never happened before, but it was only after killing this dodo I found out why, as it had a wild baby dodo next to it, one of the many new features of this game, and I was able to claim it right away, and I now had my very first tame of the 100 days, a baby dodo. I now set myself a new goal, to keep this dodo alive for the entirety of the 100 days, something that might be a bit difficult considering the first dodo I ever saw got mauled to death by a couple dinos. I gave my first new tame a fitting name of Numero 1. Just as my second dodo finished taming, my army had now doubled to a whopping number 2. With the taming over, I got back to harvesting materials, getting wood and thatch from trees and stone, metal and flint from the rocks. I made a hatchet, which made getting wood much easier, which allowed me to then make a spear. I headed along the beach to see what else there was in the nearby area, and found some more baby creatures, this time lystros. I began to build the foundations of a starter base and cooked some of the meat that had just been collected, until the fog rolled in and I spotted a spino. I decided to play it safe and evacuate the area, bringing my dodos with me, a decision which in hindsight was a great one, as the spino continued to roam its way down the beach in my direction. I set up a new base further down the beach, hoping to be safe from the spino, but it just seemed the spino was now just following me, as it kept coming closer and closer. So I left again, and placed my dodos on an island safe from harm. It was now day 2, and as you can see, my graphics have drastically improved with my new PC. If you're interested in the specs, I'll leave them down in the description. I found this trilobite nearby who I killed, and then harvested it to get some valuable resources, before looking back over at my base to see the spino making itself comfortable and moving in. Next, I headed out on an adventure to try and raise my level, as I wanted to start progressing faster in this challenge. I found some more baby dinos before eventually finding what I wanted, an explorer gnome, which boosted my level by 4 and I was unable to lock the raft engram. I then found something pretty amazing, a baby dodo which had a mutation which gave it a blue face. Unfortunately, or unfortunately for the dodo, its parents had been killed, which meant I was able to claim it instantly. There is only one thing better than a baby dodo, and that is War Thunder, today's sponsor. War Thunder is the best and most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, where you can play with some of your favourite vehicles, as they have over 2,000 planes, tanks, helicopters and ships in dynamic PvP battles. The massive collection spans over 100 years of development, with each vehicle being extensively detailed and modelled down to their each individual component, offering a highly immersive combat experience. On top of that, each vehicle has a highly in-depth customization system, where you can apply many different camouflages and historical markings anywhere on your vehicle. This game is a must-try, with its incredible graphics and details in 4K resolutions as you destroy enemy vehicles and listen to the immense authentic sounds available. So what are you waiting for? Available on PC, Xbox and PlayStation for free, War Thunder is a must-play today. Using my link, new members and those who haven't played for 6 months can claim a large bonus pack containing multiple premium vehicles, a premium account and much more, available for a limited time only. I got some more materials and crafted a raft, which ended up giving me an extra 10 levels. I placed the raft in the water and brought my new dodo with me, and set off to the first stop, being to collect the 2 dodos from day 1. It's day 3 now, and with my new PC I'm still getting used to everything and forgot to record. Luckily I didn't miss much, only me dying to a pack of raptors, spawning back in, taming a rubbish low level moss shark which was like level 15. But I now got back to where I had died off screen, to find the raptors now circling my raft, trying to kill the dodos on board. With the raptors distracted, I made a run to get my stuff to find one of the raptors had now aggroed on me, but I was able to kill it with my moss chops. I got the aggro of the other raptor, bullied it and began beating it with a club, as this one was a level 130 and that was just too good to not tame. After knocking it unconscious, I went out and killed some baby dodos, which for some reason give raw prime meat, and after waiting around for a while, my new raptor was tamed, and the new addition to my growing army. With the army packed on the raft, we set off to sail once again. We made it all the way to the swamp on the east coast, till we ran into some issues when I was attacked by a Sarco which killed Lucky, the dodo which I had just tamed with the blue face. Once again I forgot to record this part as I was still experiencing crashing with ARK Survival Ascended at this point, and it made it difficult to remember when I was recording or not. But this was the last time I faced any crashing issues in the game. I began to build a small temporary base before I was ready to move inland, to the location that I had in mind. But then this Pharazina decided to claim my base for itself. But with my raptor being such a good level, I was able to easily take it out and reclaim my base by the end of day 7. I went on a quick trip with my raptor in search of a PT. I quickly found one which was level 80, which was plenty. I ran up to it, hit it with my bowler to trap it, and began to shoot it with a few trank arrows I had made to knock it out. It went unconscious and I went off to get raw prime meat from this baby dodo. Whilst it tamed, my base began to be attacked by a Sarco, but luckily my raptor was on hand to deal with the situation. I then got into a bit of bother when I took on a trike who had 2 friends next to it, and I soon learnt that trikes take much reduced damage to the face, even from other dinos, so you have to aim for the body. To my surprise though, my raptor took on all 3 and came out victorious. I killed the trikes because I needed the keratin, so I also killed this trilobite which gave me some extra chitin needed to make the PT saddle. With the saddle acquired, I now had flight for the very first time in ARK Survival Ascended. I used this opportunity to go on a scouting mission to see what it was about, with my first stop being Kano Island. I made a pit stop in the cave just to check it out, and it looked amazing. But I didn't venture too far in as I saw a couple onyx and peaced out. I then left and ended my scouting mission, where I returned back to base and began farming a lot of wood. With the wood being used to craft the foundations of the base I wanted to move to, the area where I wanted to base was starting to become quite familiar with me, as I based here on my last 100 days on the island. Check out that vid after this one if you want. The reason I liked this base spot so much was because it was right next to water, had a flat land, with easy metal access just in the mountain to the north. In fact, I was even given a moving in gift, but the contents weren't the greatest. With the area selected, I placed down the first few foundations for my hopefully forever base, but the area did have its risks as a pack of raptors attacked the local patch of rhinosauruses. Then a Kano joined the party, but my PT wasn't strong enough so I fled the area. Things then got even better as an allo joined in, but at least the 2 seemed to be fighting each other. I rolled into day 8, the heavy and intensive farming continued as I had a lot of land to farm. After a while I was able to get some storage boxes down and a refining forge, but I had to get metal to smelt for it. So I headed up to the mountain to do exactly that, but I got distracted with this red drop which gave me a ramshackle shotgun on just day 8. I eventually got some metal from the mountain and brought it back to base, placed it in the forge. With the metal I was able to get a smithy placed down and I could now upgrade to metal tools, replacing the stone ones I had, and the metal tools made getting metal from the rocks much more efficient now. Back at base I placed down a mortar and pestle before finding a very welcomed visitor, which was a max level 150 Dimorphodon, and I just had to tame it. I bowlered it, knocked it out with some trank arrows, and then headed out to kill a baby trike to get raw prime meat, which I then used to feed it, and it was tamed. On day 9 the crashes returned, and I was unable to get any footage, but I managed to tame myself a decent Argentavis up in the mountain, but I did end up losing my PT in exchange. If anyone is interested, these were the crashes I was now facing, and it turns out a lot of others were at this time, but we continue. The RG meant that I could now bring my beloved army to my base, something which I had been wanting to do for a while. On day 10 I went on a drop hunt and found this Anki which was only level 35, but was the only one I could find in the entire map. I finally knocked it out and left it to tame. Whilst it did tame, I thought it would be sensible to do another metal run up at the mountain. But it was then that I noticed something looked off at my base, and it wasn't my raptor, but more so what was no longer behind my raptor. My Anki had disappeared, and after investigating the area I found the culprit, a Dilo, and I had spent so long searching for that Anki, and for some reason Dilos have it out for me when it comes to taming Ankis. The same happened in my Fjordur vid. I killed the Anki in revenge, but saw it had a baby, and I left that little one alone. So I began searching for another Anki, this time in the snow. The only two I could find were level 10 and 20, so I scooped up the 20 and brought it back to base, knocked it out and Dilo-proofed the area. Whilst it tamed, I spotted an otter in the nearby water, but then found something even better, as a level 135 Rex wandered into the background. I immediately got back to the base and began crafting trank arrows. I got myself on the ledge on the cliff, and by the end of the day it was knocked out. I got raw prime meat for it by killing a Ferrozino and left it to tame. I went out and did a quick crystal trip and metal run from the mountain before going back to the otter which I was trying to tame earlier. Once the otter had tamed, the Rex had also finished taming. I was thankfully high enough level to make the Rex saddle, which made getting it back to base much easier, even though it was just across the water. Back at base I made spark powder, which was used to make a fabricator. Then I started day 12 by collecting this red drop which had riot leggings in. I continued in the snow looking for a better Raji than what I had found, and then I found this level 135, which would do. But in typical ARK fashion, as I attempted to knock it out, it flew over the water and decided to go to sleep under the water. So instead I found the oil from these rocks, looted a purple drop which gave me fur armour, and headed off back home. At base I began to mass craft more narcotics and shotgun ammo, before I spotted a level 145 Quetzal flying about near my base. I quickly made grappling hooks and trank arrows and set off to tame it. I grappled onto my RG and whistled after it, trying to hit it whenever I got close, but the thing with Quetzals is that they just have a lot of torpor, so this method went on for quite a while. By sunset it still wasn't down. Only at midnight did I manage to finally get the Quetzal to give in and fall unconscious, and luckily it landed on the edge of the cliff and it seemed to be fairly safe. Whilst the Quetzal was unconscious, I went back to base and found a few narco berries with my moss drops. I placed the narco berries in the mortar and pestle and began turning them into narcotics with the spoiled meat in there. With the narcotics made, I flew back over to the Quetzal and placed them in its inventory, and used them to stop the torpor from dropping further, as the Quetzal was taking quite a while to tame and I could not afford to let it wake up. Whilst the Quetzal stayed asleep with the torpor situation covered, for the time being, I went out to get raw prime meat so I could tame it, and I saw these pair of Allosauruses fighting a Parasaur, and knew joining in with my shotgun would make it for an easy kill so I could get the prime meat. I fed the Quetzal with the food that I just collected, and waited around for a while till it eventually tamed, where I then named it Bertha. And Bertha's stats didn't seem all too bad, as I did notice its health looked quite high, but I'm not all too familiar with the Quetzal stats. I got back to base and saw the materials that I needed to make the Quetzal saddle, and I was short. With that noted, I went out on my Rex to get them, but instead I ran into something else, a female level 145 trike, but it had a level 145 baby trike right next to it, which is what I wanted. I took out the parrot with my shotgun and then jumped down to claim my new baby level 145 trike. But it turns out the nearby trike population heard this and wanted to take me out, as they decided to attack right there. I quickly ran back to my Rex, hopped on and was able to defend myself. I ran back to base to get my RG so I could fly out and scoop up my new baby trike, bringing it back to base. With that done, I put some berries in the feeding trough and let it grow up. I headed over to the snow to get silica pearls for the Quetzal saddle, and made some more cementing paste at home, before going back out on my Rex to try and find a beaver dam. Instead, I went on a rampage killing Rexes, Alpha Carnos, a pack of Allos, where one had a good level that I really probably should have tamed, and then finally found an Alpha Raptor who I killed. My search for a beaver dam failed, so I just made the remaining cementing paste at home, and then crafted the saddle. On day 15, I went out on my Quetzal to the snow, tame a Carno, as I thought this would be the best caving creature to have. So I knocked one out and soon later it was tamed. At base I made my new Carno a saddle and took it out to level it up so it was ready for caving. I even managed to find a couple more beaver dams where I stole the cementing paste, but I ended up running into quite a powerful Ferrozino who didn't take any liking towards my Carno and decided to end its life just moments after it began. Once the Carno was slain, the Ferrozino didn't stop there and went for me as well, resulting in yet another death. I spawned back in and things got even worse, as I was hounded by Troodons, yet somehow they all missed with every attack and aggroed onto something else, allowing me to get away. I made it all the way to my base, whistled my RG and then picked up my raptor to go get my things back. Arriving back, I went all out on the Therizine, but it continued to stand its ground for a while, but it eventually died. With it dead, I collected my things and used this opportunity to attempt a cave as I had my raptor on me. And the cave in question was the central cave, one of the easier ones on the map. Once inside, my raptor seemed to be doing okay, with its high DPS, but the issues came when the bats started attacking, as they would fly around and they would only hit my raptor's head, doing extra damage than normal, and it was melting my raptor's health, and things only got worse when they started infecting me with mega rabies. As I retreated, I was able to recover some of my health and take the bats out one by one. Further into the cave, I could hear a loot drop, but a Megalosaurus stood in between me and it, and these guys can be rather lethal, especially against small creatures like raptors, but it didn't seem to stand much chance against me and my shotgun and raptor. With it gone, I was able to loot the drop, but its contents weren't the best. Next I fought more Onyx, but I got mega rabies again. Once I recovered, I fought again and got mega rabies once more, and this time I knew I would not survive, so I retreated and then died. Realising this cave was now much tougher than I originally thought, I packed my things and left. On the way back to base, I looted this red drop, which had okay loot, before heading out to the swamp to kill leeches to get leech blood. The blood was then used to craft lesser antidote, which seemed like I was going to need quite a lot with the frequency of getting mega rabies in this game. And with my Carno dying just before, I wanted to head out and look for a baryonyx, and I only found this level 70. So instead I tamed this level 95 Moschop's baby, who had also had a mutated sibling who I took. And by the end of day 17, my new Moschops had finished growing. Day 18 started by farming bushes to make more narcotics, before taking my new Moschops out to the central cave once again. On the way I stopped at this yellow drop with rings, which has some rather good loot inside. Stuff that I'll need later in this video. I eventually got to the cave and began my descent down with my Moschops. One of the drops had respawned and I managed to get myself some more good saddle blueprints. My Moschop seemed to be handling the creatures in the cave much better than the raptor did before, as it lacked the headshot multiplier, but the real test would be against the Onyx, as that is what had defeated me just before. And thankfully my Moschops was able to handle them much better than the raptor. Unfortunately though, that did not stop me from getting mega rabies again, but luckily this time I had brought lesser antidote with me to cure it. And with everything killed, I was able to collect my very first artifact, the artifacts of the Clever. On the way out, a loot drop had respawned, and I got even more loot. I finally got to the entrance and quickly left victorious from that cave. On the way back, I stopped off at yet another yellow drop which gave me some more good saddles, and I ended day 18 by taking my Angie to the mountain to do another metal run, before finding another yellow drop with rings which gave me metal building supplies, and a much better RG saddle which I equipped immediately. On day 19 I found a yellow drop which had metal buildings in it, which was turning out to be a really good method of getting metal, as you could place these structures and then destroy them to get all the contents. Then I went back to base to continue berry farming and spoiling a bunch of raw meat into spoiled meat so I could mass produce narcotics. Whilst they crafted, I went out and found a bunch of flint and stone to make spark powder, which I would then add to charcoal to make gunpowder, and I ended the day by farming a bunch of thatch. On day 20 I wanted to start a new project, as I crafted and placed down these stone foundations in a 4x3 layout. I wanted to make a greenhouse, so I made the walls but ran out of crystal, so I had to go on a quick trip to the mountain to restock. With all the crystal collected, I was able to finish off the greenhouse, and now it was time to farm the materials to make the crop plots, with my greenhouse being able to house 12 of them. But to complete the farming process, I needed a Phiomia, and I found this baby one which had red dots, a clear sign of a mutation, and I wanted it. So I killed the parent and then claimed the baby for myself. Whilst the baby grew, I crafted more gunpowder and went out farming bushes on my trike to get the seeds needed for the greenhouse, and stimberries to feed the Phiomia to get feed seeds which I would be using for fertiliser. I combined the seeds and the fertilisers in the crop plots and let the plants grow. But first I did need to add water and irrigation, and it's got a whole new system in ARK Survival Ascended. All you have to place is the water intake, and everything within the radius shown is given water. I was rather confused at first as I didn't realise this was a new feature, but it made water and irrigation much easier. You can even place wireless water taps closer to your base, still within the radius. Whilst the plants grew, I wanted to go out on an adventure, but I first topped off a yellow drop which had some more. I was looking for either a megatherium or a mammoth in the snow, and I found a decent leveled 115 megatherium, but I wanted better. And better I got as I found a max level mammoth who was able to pick up and save from a Carno and bring it back to base. On the way back to base I saw another yellow drop, which I decided to loot, and by absolute coincidence it had an ascendant mammoth saddle inside, just as I was bringing my mammoth back to base. Once at base I stood on the back of my Quetzal and began to knock out the mammoth, and by the end of the day it was down and out. Whilst the mammoth tamed, I went out on my mosh chops to get some levels by killing an alpha raptor whilst having an XP boost. This was an incredibly smart decision I had made, as once it was killed I got an extra 11 levels onto my mosh chops. At base I AFK'd for a little bit whilst the mammoth tamed, and thought it's probably best to gather materials instead, including a metal trip up to the mountain. By the evening my mammoth finished taming, and I used it immediately to go out on a wood trip and use its weight reduction to my advantage, and once I was done I had completely changed the landscape with all the wood being collected. The wood was then used to craft behemoth gates, which I placed at either end of my base to secure it off from unwanted visitors, but I did have to place some extra walls on the side to completely block everything off. Then I did the same at the other end, but this side did have a small gap underneath the gate, which I was a little bit conscious about creatures being able to get through and into my base. But with the building done, I wanted to go out with my mosh shops on a killing mission, and I found the perfect target, an Alpha Carno. However, this fight turned out to be a lot closer than the Alpha Raptor I just fought, but nonetheless my mosh shops was able to come out on top, even if it did lose a lot of health. With the extra levels I thought my mosh shops were now ready to do another cave, so I attempted the lower south cave, one of the easiest ones on the island. Once inside I made my way through the drooping vines and luminous crystals and mushrooms, and I must say the caves in Survival Ascended looked absolutely amazing. Further in, I began the mass exodus of scorpions, spiders and snakes, and my mosh chops was definitely up to the job, as I entered the artifact room and quite easily took out the remaining mobs and collected the artifact. On the way out I had more killing to do, and eventually me and my mosh chops were able to get out the cave safe and sound. Back at base I made myself an electrical generator and began to build a second layer at my base as I was running out of room. I then placed the generator on top and crafted myself a couple ACs and a refrigerator, which were now powered wirelessly from the generator, one of the extra new features in ARK Survival Ascended. Next I built myself a small 2x2 metal structure I'd got from the drops, and I would use this later as a taming trap for future dinos. I then went out to give it a try. But the first creature I found was this lonely high level Phiomia, who I felt quite sorry for just seeing it run around, so I picked it up and tamed it back at my base, naming it Lost. But then I went back out to search for either a baryonyx or a frog in the swamp. I found neither, but I did run into the new Radio Nagtha, which was no match for my Quetzal, and I managed to get one of the new pheromones, which I would be needing later. I continued my search but would only find low level baryonyx, and I ended up searching the entire map, and it was only by night time that I finally found something worth taming, a level 125 frog, who I scooped up and brought back to base. I plopped it into my new trap for the first time and knocked it out with trank arrows, and then went out to get some raw prime meat and found something even better, a max level 150 Therizino. Despite that find, I still killed a stego to get the raw prime meat for my taming frog, and later that day it was tamed. But now I wanted that ferry, and for some reason I decided to build a new trap, forgetting that I'd just literally made my own one at base. I then went over to the area and cleared out any dinos which may interfere with the taming process. I got the Therizino into the bear trap first try, but then took too long to placing the billboards as it escaped and almost killed me and my RG. On second try I was able to get it inside the billboards, trapped, safe and ready to be knocked out, and a while later my new ferry was knocked out. But the issue with Therizinos is that their torpor drops insanely quick, and I had to run back to base to make sure I had enough spare, if needed. Then I sat around and watched over it, whilst I waited for it to tame. Later that day I was still waiting, so decided to head back to base and craft an industrial cooker, as my cooked meat supply was running relatively short, and then I did a short narco berry farming trip to end the day. It was the following day and my ferry was still taming, so I did another metal run, and it was only by the end of the day that the Therizino had finished up taming. I went over with my Quetz, picked it up and brought it back to base, and then headed out once again to look for a baryonyx. I decided to settle for this level 85 as it was the best I could find across the whole map. I then brought it back to base, ready to tame. I dropped it into the trap I had and then knocked it out. These guys eat raw prime fish meat, so I had to go into the water next to base and kill a couple saber-toothed salmons and harvest their body with sickles to get the meat. Not long later, my baryonyx was up and tamed. I took it out for a levelling trip as I planned to use this dino for caving, and I did find a level 110 Dodit on my journeys, something which I'll probably come back later to tame. I finally found a creature that I wanted, an Alpha Raptor, and with an XP boost active, I thought that ought to give me a lot of levels. That's if I can kill it though, as my baryonyx wasn't quite strong yet, and I was forced to retreat into the water because my health was running too low. But luckily Barrys can heal very quickly by killing fish, as this is one of the best features about them in my opinion. So it wasn't long until I was able to get back into the fight and I managed to kill the Alpha Raptor and get a whopping 38 levels on my baryonyx. With it being decently levelled, I headed over to Kano Island to take on the Kano Island cave, but this cave was full of bats, which meant mega rabies, and I was only halfway down when I used my last antidote, meaning I had just 3 minutes to kill all the bats in the cave, which I somehow managed to do with still a minute spare on the antidote timer. With the final creatures killed in the cave, I was able to collect the artifact of the Devourer, and then on my way out a blue drop spawned and I got an Ascendant Phiomia saddle and a club. But before leaving Kano Island, I looted this purple drop, which had some rather useful stuff inside. I then went out to get that high level Dodit I had just found whilst levelling the baryonyx from earlier, who had now healed up a little bit from the fight that it was in, which meant that I could bring it back to base and knock it out. Whilst it tamed, I went out to collect wood with my Therizino, who would be the harvester, whilst bringing my mammoth, who would be the one that would hold all the wood with its weight reduction. I was starting to run out of storage right now in my 100 days, so I built a little extra storage bit behind my base where I'd store high quantity stuff like hide, chitin and fibre. Day 30 started by doing some maintenance, by adding lighting and sorting all of my storage before I went out to the snow to farm up oil and silica pearls, as well as getting a little bit of polymer from these penguins using my new amazing Ascendant club. I got back from the snow and my Dodit had finished taming, and these guys are amazing stone gatherers, so I immediately took it out to do so. On day 31 I made some scuba as I wanted to enter into the water scene and get myself a couple starter water dinos. I put the scuba on and went into the water to see what I could find. I was immediately swarmed by a pack of megalodons, but luckily I was able to take them out whilst being on the land. But I did have to return to base to repair my scuba, which they had broken just a little bit. But once I did return, I found what I wanted, a level 115 megalodon. Before taming it though, I had to kill some more which had spawned in the area. Then I was able to knock it out. I travelled up the shore and killed this baby parasaur to get raw prime meat to feed my taming megalodon, and whilst I tamed, I killed some more that were in the area. I quickly popped back to base to make it a saddle, and when I returned it finished taming, and I had my very first water creature in ARK Survival Ascended. I was then welcomed with the opportunity to get my second, as a level 135 dolphin showed up to where I was and offered to be tamed, so I tamed it just as well. With my new meg I was able to venture down into the depths without the fear of being killed, but I continued my search in the depths for an anglerfish and finally found one, a level 75. I tried killing off its mates but then was attacked by a plesio, which made things just a little bit more complicated. But eventually I was able to start knocking out the anglerfish. I knocked it out and went to give it food and noticed that its health was at a whopping 2. The angler tamed and I now had the best silica pearl farming creature in the game, and I was immediately able to put it to use as there were a few pearls nearby which I were able to harvest. It seemed I'd overstayed my time in the water though, as I got attacked by a Tuso that I never even saw. As I scrambled to get away, it got hold of my megalodon, and not long later Shelly the megalodon was dead. With that loss I decided my time in the water was over and I flew back to base. A good thing about the trip in the water was that I got a lot of silica pearls, which meant I could craft a lot of electronics. I also thought it would be wise to build a water pen, as my dolphin had just been killed by a shark whilst I was away. So I built some gates, placed them in a small stretch of water, and let my anglerfish live there. On my way back to base I looted another yellow drop which gave me a whole bunch of saddles, including one for my Quetzal. I've been crafting and smelting a bunch of stuff recently and was finally able to make a chemistry bench. This would allow me to mass produce stuff like gunpowder, cementing paste and narcotics, and I wanted to do exactly this, so I took my Dodoc out to get stone, which I combined with chitin to make cementing paste. On day 34 I headed over to the snow to get polymer from penguins, as I was trying to make an industrial forge, yet I was still short on the metal and polymer. I flew over to the volcano to get obsidian, which I then turned into polymer the normal way, but I then spotted something quite odd. There were 2 gigas and a Carchodontosaurus just stood up in the mountain, stood there in the mesh, but they didn't aggro onto me, so I was able to get the obsidian. I brought the obsidian back to the fabricator and was able to make a decent amount in polymer, before I lay around waiting for the rest of the metal to smelt. It wasn't until the next day when I was able to craft the industrial forge. I then placed it on top of my base and then made another trip up to the volcano to get more crystal so that I could make ACs, but the rest of day 36 was pretty uneventful. On day 37 I packed up my scuba gear again and frog and headed over to the swamp cave, not to try and take it on, as my frog was nowhere near strong enough to even do so, but to farm up some cementing paste from the Maganuras. As well as getting hundreds of cementing paste, this turned out to be a really good way of levelling up my frog. Once I had collected enough, I picked up my frog and flew back to base. I then spent days 38 to 41 out trying to find anything of decent level to tame and add to my growing army, but I struggled to find anything. I searched the whole map with the only decent things being this yellow drop that I got. But at least I had some good views whilst flying around, because ARK Survival Ascended does look absolutely stunning. And it was on day 41 that I did a little dance in my Quetzal and found something good. A level 135 baryonyx, which was a massive upgrade on my current one. I picked it up and brought it back to base where I dropped it in my trap and then knocked it out. I headed into the water to kill saber-tooth salmons to get the raw prime fish meat needed, and a while later my new baryonyx was tamed. I was out in the snow on day 42 looking for megatheriums. I found a few rubbish ones and then found an incredible level 140 whose partner was also not too badly levelled. I quickly flew back to base, hopped on my Quetzal and went out to pick it up, and then bring it back to base to drop in my trap, which I then knocked it out in. Once it was down, I went out and killed another Therizino to get raw prime meat and then left it to tame. By the end of the day I had a new member in my army. But I now wanted a breeding pair of Rexes, so I headed over to Kano Island, but first stopped off at this purple drop. On the island I only saw rubbish low level ones, and then began to kill them all, hoping that some decent ones would spawn in their place. This killing spree kind of extended into the whole map as I failed to find any high level ones. I made my way back over to the volcano to toy with that Carchodontosaurus from before, who was properly stuck in the mesh on the volcano as it couldn't get out to hit me. I used the opportunity whilst being on the volcano to get some obsidian, but ARK then took its revenge by toying with me and spawning a Rex in my base. But it was a low level, again, who I killed easily. Day 44 started with 2 yellow drops which had incredible loot, but I then found something even better. A level 130 female Rex. I quickly built a trap for the Rex and then lured it into said trap, but whilst knocking it out I saw that a level 125 Rex had spawned behind it. Some simply great timing from ARK. Then my recording software ran into a bit of an issue whilst I was waiting for the Rex to go unconscious, but after restarting ARK it was down. I then killed the other high level Rex to get prime meat and also found a wild baby Bronto who I claimed and tamed. I then fed the Rex a prime meat and quickly went back to base to find an alpha raptor just chilling at my base. Once I dealt with that, I flew back on my Quetzal to try and pick up the Bronto to bring it home, but I was too late and it was already too big to be picked up, and I just refused to bring it all the way back to home, so I kind of left it behind. Later that day the Rex tamed, and it was immediately put into action as we were rushed by 2 more Rexes, something which became a bit of an act of revenge, as these 2 Rexes had actually just killed my baby Bronto that I kind of left behind to die. At base I made my Rex a saddle and then ran out to find a max level male Rex just chilling outside my base, something that I will definitely be taming once I get back from picking up my Rex. I got my Rex safe and sound and brought it back to base, then went out to tame the max level Rex which I had just Where's it gone then? It was literally just here. It can't have died. Oh, it died. It's died to those Dimorphodons. I just know it. I didn't want it anyway if it's Dimorphodons. As I had to now settle with the 2 Rexes that I already tamed, I began breeding them and making a small nursery where I could hatch them. But I ran out of metal whilst building it, so I ran up to the mountain to do a quick restock of metal. By the end of the day it was all built and even included lighting. On day 47 I forgot about the breeding Rexes and found 2 which had just hatched, but neither had good stats, so I killed them both. I then went out and found a good Therizino, so I brought it home and knocked it out in the trap. But as I soon would be breeding boss dinos, I thought it would be a good idea to get a Lystro to help the levelling, as these guys give experience boosts. I ended up taming 2 as I felt bad leaving one baby on its own in the wild to grow. At base I hatched some more Rexes and then began to get another breeding pair, but none were good, so they were just used to level my new Baryonyx. Next, I gave my taming Therizino one last load of narcotics and headed out on my freshly leveled Baryonyx to the southeast and towards the lava cave, as I felt it was time to get another artifact. The new upgraded Baryonyx was making things so much more easier now, despite the caves feeling a lot tougher than what I was used to on ARK Survival Evolved. I managed to clear everything out fairly easily and jumped over the lava to get the artifact, but the issues arose on my way out, where I failed to clear the first jump and landed in the lava, killing me, my otter, my Baryonyx and all the stuff I had on me. Quite literally the only positive was being able to spawn back at base and give my taming Therizino narcotics, as it was almost out and I wouldn't have been able to return in time had I completed the cave. I gathered some basic equipment that I had lying around and took my Argean Raptor out to see if anything was salvageable from the death in the lava cave. Using my Raptor I got to where I had just died, but nothing. There was nothing left. Although, interestingly, the logs show that my Baryonyx never died. My guess is that it fell through the map whilst I respawned back at base, but sadly the otter did die. I used grappling hooks to get over the lava, seeing as I couldn't be trusted to jump it. I made my way out with an artifact, but at the loss of my Baryonyx, otter and all my gear. Back at base my Therizino finally finished taming, and now had a breeding pair of Theries. I also wanted a breeding pair of Megatheriums for the breed mother fight, but I was struggling to find any of decent level. So I settled for this level 85 male, who I scooped up and began to bring back to base. Yet there seemed to be another surprise of me, as there was just an Alpha Rex battling a Bronto at the other end of my base. I tried not to panic, as this could easily destroy a lot of my army, and was able to lead it off the edge of the cliff, making my base safe, temporarily. I then used all the equipment I had available to try and take down the ultimate apex creature in the ARK, and after shooting it a whole lot of bullets, I was able to down the big Goliath, saving my base from any harm. And with all the royal prime meat I got, I threw it all in the cooker and turned it into cooked prime meat. With the Rex dealt with, I was finally able to go back to dealing with the Megatherium, who was patiently waiting for me in the trap. Once it was down, I placed a whole bunch of measure berries in its inventory, and then went out on a metal trip at the volcano, whilst the Megatherium continued to tame, and that drew a close to the halfway point in the 100 days. On day 51 I returned to base and my Megatherium had finished taming, but then I picked up some scuba gear and I wanted to head back into the ocean. But first I tamed myself another otter, as my last one had just died in the lava cave. I hopped on my anglerfish and went out searching in the deep seas to see if there was anything worth taming. And there was, as I found a level 135 Megalodon. Firstly I had to kill off its friends, but this only drew in the aggro of an Alpha Megalodon, which made things a lot more difficult. I was able to get the Megalodon I wanted to tame to be alone, and began to knock it out. However, this drew in a massive army of Megalodons, who I then had to kill before I was able to knock out my Meg. Whilst it tamed, I went back to base to pick up one of the saddles I looted for it, and then killed a Therizino on my way back to get raw prime meat. But then I ran into a lot more trouble, as some piranhas swam up from the swamp and took out my anglerfish. But then Wildcard rewarded me by giving me a 130 Megalodon, who I also knocked out. In the early hours of the next day, the first Megalodon tamed and I took it out and quickly found another level 145 Megalodon who I wanted. I was able to knock that one out, but I did have to deal with a herd of piranhas attacking. A while later the second Megalodon finished taming, and then so did the third one. With the pack tamed, I tried to take them back to the water pen, but ran into another pack of Megalodons, which also had their older big brother Alpha Megalodon to help them out. This resulted in the death of 2 of my newly tamed Megalodons, as I was able to flee the scene on the other. On day 53, I was farming more narco berries to make narcotics, and found that my Ferrozinos had accidentally hatched, and I had one growing up. I then took one of the grown fairies out to farm more wood so that I could build a bigger water pen. I went back to the old one, picked up the gates, and then began to build a new one in a different location, and by the end of the day I had built this. But I returned back to base to find a Rex had brought in its 2 children in my base, but I had no mercy and killed the lot. The next day I went back out to my Meg to try and rebuild my Megalodon army. Again. The first thing I found was a deep sea loot crate, which gave me nothing really good. I then ran into a low level Moser who was able to kill, and then swam away from a Tuso who I didn't think I could kill. But I did find a level 140 anglerfish who I did want to tame. I knocked it out and went onto the beach to get raw prime meat from this Diplo, and whilst it tamed I continued to explore the water further, even killing an alpha lead Sichthies. Eventually my anglerfish tamed and my water army rose again to the count of 2. And this time I played it safe and brought the anglerfish back to the pen where it would be safe from any harm. I continued my journey in the water, but things would suddenly take a turn for the worst as I was grabbed by a Tuso who was stuck behind the mesh, only to find out that it was an alpha Tuso. I somehow managed to get out on very low health and then spotted another Moser that was stuck in the mesh just opposite it. This Moser was a level 90, and with it being stuck so easily I thought it would make a pretty easy tame. With it knocked out, I then headed up to the shoreline to kill an Archie for raw prime meat. I fed it some narcotics and then rushed back to base to quickly repair my scuba gear, get more narcotics for the Moser, and make the Moser a saddle. I then swam back as quickly as possible before my Moser woke up. I fed the Moser more narcotics and then decided to stupidly fight the Alpha Tuso that had just fought me just before. I got stuck in the mesh with the Tuso and somehow was able to finish it with my bleed attack damage. I looted the body for the tributes and black pearls, and not long later my Moser finished taming. And before day 55 ended, I brought my new Moser back to base. With the Moser safe, I went back out searching, finding plesios, Mosers, and even entering the Western Water Cave before I found anything good. But I did quickly leave the cave as I didn't think I was ready to take it on yet. I eventually found a level 135 Megalodon, so I knocked it out, fed raw prime meat, and enjoyed the sunset as it finished taming by the end of the day. On the way back to base, my new Meg was swimming on top of the water, and then suddenly it insta-died. And my Megalodon count was back down to 1. Thankfully though, I happened to find another good level Megalodon just nearby, so I knocked it out, then tamed it and managed to bring it safely back home to my water pen, where I then called it a day on the water exploration. At base, I began breeding Megatheriums and crafting a gas mask using the absorbent substrate I had just gotten from killing the Alpha Tuso. The first Megatherium to hatch had a green mutation to the body, and whilst it grew up I began hatching more Rexes so I could breed them for boss battling. I killed the babies to get extra levels on my berry. One thing I did notice was that when I picked up the growing babies with a flyer, they would just simply fall through the ground and under the mesh. I then thought about maybe placing foundations, hoping that this would stop the issue, but it didn't. But I do want to say at the time of editing this issue has now been fixed. Next I began breeding my fairies, trying to get their best stats onto 1, and continuing to breed the Rexes and killing the babies with my new Megatherium to get levels. Then I took a break from the breeding to go farm metal, before I took my Megatherium out to the swamp cave, but despite being fully grown, it still fell through the mesh in the ground once again, just as the Rexes did. After restarting I was able to get it out, but I then realised I couldn't even fit it into the cave entrance, as I had to use cryopods, and obviously this game hasn't released with cryopods. So I flew back to base and returned on my frog, and this definitely could fit in. I wasn't too sure how well it would cope with the full cave, as it was really good against all the flies and bugs, but not much else, and I did have to heal it up quite a lot, as I continued to soldier my way through the cave. I even found a yellow drop which had decent loot and continued the fighting, and I decided to come up with a strategy where I would take off my gas mask while fighting the Arthros, even though the cave does do damage if you don't have this on. I made my way into the second last room and fought off the final wave of spiders and flies, healed up for the very last time, and then looted this red drop, the artifact of the immune, and then another red drop which had some quite good loot in, before I quickly made my way out the cave as quick as possible. Once I was out, I was able to examine the loot I had just got. I'd gotten an Ascendant Rex saddle and an Ascendant Rhino Nag saddle, some incredible loot. At base, I continued to breed my newly mutated Rexes, and then went out to collect a few yellow drops, before going into the northwestern snow cave. I was able to kill the first few creatures fairly easily, but then soon found myself being bombarded by many bats and spiders, one which gave me mega rabies, but I was able to deal with that pretty quickly, with the antidotes that I had brought. I found myself being pushed further and further back, unable to deal with the mobs, and then soon died in the cave. At base, I crafted some more fur armour and made my way back to the cave, only to get stuck and killed by a couple onyx. On my second try to get my stuff, I lured the onyx out to be killed by my RG and was able to get my first set of items back. After searching around for a while, I managed to get the old stuff, which had been stuck in the ceiling, and I continued with my pursuit of the artifact, killing anything that stood in my way. I was able to reach the artifact's room and stole the artifact, killing one final bat which was in the same room as it, and then quickly made my way out as I wanted nothing to do with this cave anymore. I was in the mood for more caving though, so I picked up my Barry and went out to do the upper south cave. I entered the cave and soon found a problem, as my baryonyx wasn't able to get past this tree. Luckily, I could jump around it and I was able to continue with the onslaught of cave creatures, until I got stuck again. This time there was no way around it, as I had to leave my baryonyx behind and go on foot for the remainder of the cave. But I was still able to use my baryonyx, as I would run ahead, grab the creature's aggro, drag them back to my baryonyx, hop on it and then kill them using the baryonyx. I eventually got into the main room, killed a couple more creatures that were lying around, and then took out my grappling hook, shot it towards this hole in the wall which you can just about see, and which meant that I could skip the entire water section. I killed one final Aranio and was able to collect the artifact of the pack, and then quickly made my way out. I hopped on my Barry and attempted to get him past a tree which he had previously got stuck on, but this time I messed up worse. I ended up falling down and had to kill my way out of this pit, only to now find myself stuck on the other side of that pinch spot in the wall, which I definitely had no way of getting around. So I was forced to leave the baryonyx behind. But things got worse, as I saw damage numbers showing up on my screen, and I just assumed that this was my baryonyx fighting something, but it wasn't. I exited the cave to find nothing. I checked the logs and there it was. My Quetzal had just been killed by a Therizino. I looked around and saw it, my Quetzal's lifeless body there on the ground. I tried to be a good owner for once and avenge my Quetzal's death by killing the ferry, but it killed me instead. I spawned back, collected my stuff, and then began the long run back to base, birdless. I managed to get back by sunrise, and surprisingly without any incidents. At base, normal life resumed though, as I found some rocks and then headed out to the water pan, and began breeding the Megalodons to raise up a giant Megalodon army. Whilst they bred, I went out on my Moser to get food, and ended up killing an Alpha Megalodon in the process. Back at the water pen, my first Megalodon was born, and I claimed it. Soon later, I began the imprint process, and then a second Megalodon was born. Across the next few days, I hatched some twins and a couple more Megalodons before I went back to base and began raising a group of Rexes. This group would be used to fight bosses later on. I imprinted the Rexes, and at the end of day 65, I had fully raised a group of them. I started day 66 by looting a couple drops nearby before taking my pack of Megalodons out to the water cave. And these guys turned out to be pretty good, as they would shred through almost anything, even including Alpha Megalodons. We finally got to the western water cave, the easier of the two, and entered. I began clearing out the cave of all the dangerous mobs, and was even able to loot this yellow drop, which gave me some okay loot. As we entered the final room, we killed the remaining creature, but sadly one of my Megs was killed. Despite that, I was able to collect the artifact of the brute, and then made my way out. On the way back, we continued to destroy the ocean, killing Plesios and Tusos, but then ran into a Moser, who I thought we could easily take with my team, which we could, until its big brother Alpha Mosasaur joined, and I sprinted with my army for our lives. But I don't quit that early, so I went back into fight, and surprisingly we were able to take down the Alpha Moser without a single casualty. With that huge W, I got my army back into its pen safely. The next day I took my Rexes out to get levels and hide, and came back with quite a large sum of it. But now I thought it was time to attempt the hard snow cave, so I took my Therizino over on a raft to do so. They had changed the entrance, so I was unsure what creatures could now be brought and fit in, so I decided to test it with my ferry. But it turns out ferries still don't fit. So I went out to tame a trike, as they were slightly smaller and still quite strong on Acer. I tamed this high level and then brought it back to base to breed with my other one. I hatched the egg and then waited to get the imprint to 100% by the end of day 70. Once it was raised, I used it to kill many baby Rexes to get levels, and then brought it over to the snow cave to see if it fit. It didn't. So I went out to look for something smaller, and I headed myself to Carno Island to try Sabertooths, and luckily there was a level 130 at Carno Island which I knocked out and tamed. I soon found a second level 135 who I also knocked out. The reason I was going with Sabertooths was that I managed to find myself a few good saddles, yet I was still wary because they had the headshot damage multiplier that the Raptors had as well. At the end of day 71, the second Sabertooth finished taming, and I brought them both home. I began breeding them at base and soon had my very first baby Sabertooth. Whilst it grew, I went out to the snow to get metal, which turned out to be quite a costly trip as I got mauled to death by some direwolves. Back at base, I began levelling my Sabertooth. It was now fully grown, and then I went out to tame another Dimorphodon, as I thought a Sabertooth and Dimorph army would be good enough to take the snow cave. At base, I bred it with the Soul Snatcher, the OG, who I tamed on like day 7, and was even multitasking as I began breeding the Megalodons again. This process of breeding Megalodons, Dimorphodons, and Sabertooths went on for a few days, as I also began crafting ammo in preparation for the cave, as well as getting grenades for the Purlovias. And on day 75, I took my new army of Sabres and Dimorphs out to take on the mighty hard snow cave. I took them over on the water and used a raft to get them over there, but I did run into a few silly issues. We eventually got there and began to wake our mate inland, and by sunset we arrived and entered the cave. I made my way in and I was immediately stunned by a Purlovia and killed. Literally only meters into the cave. I respawned back at the entrance and returned to find all my Sabertooths had been killed or disappeared, and eventually the Dimorphs died as well. So I decided to try and solo it using grapples. I was also using grenades to unburrow the Purlovias to stop them pouncing and stunning me, whilst I also was trying to take out creatures when I could. Things were going well until I got to this small chamber where I tried to YOLO it and grapple my way over, but I got stunned by a Purlovia and then obliterated by everything else. At base, I made a bunch of grapples and fur armour and went for round 2, where I would try to Tarzan my way through it again. I got to the same spot as before and had the same outcome as before. I then tried to go on foot and died as well. I accepted defeat and decided to try the hard water cave instead. So I packed up my scuba and took my Megalodon army and Moser out to the eastern water cave entrance. We entered and began our fight against the hostile mobs, with my Megalodon army seemingly shredding everything. I even stumbled on a blue drop which gave me an ascendant shotgun. My water army was easily taking down all the Mosers in the cave, and once it was clear it was time to go further down and get the artifact. I took a smaller group of Megalodons with me and cleared out the final few creatures protecting the artifact. With them taken care of, I was able to collect the artifact of the Cunning. With it collected, I left with my army and returned back to base. At base, I began to mass produce charcoal as I thought of a method that might be able to conquer the snow cave, and it would use that new shotgun that I just got from the water cave. I would go out and get flint and stone, use that to make spark powder, combine that with charcoal to produce gunpowder, and then turn that into shotgun ammo. And after a couple of days of grinding, I was able to get over 500 shotgun shells and make a bunch of grapples. With everything ready, I took on the snow cave once again. I took out a few direwolves and made my way inside to take out a couple more. I used the grenades that unburrow the Polovia and take them out as well. I used my grapples to get above the mobs and slowly take them out one by one. After clearing out the final few creatures, I continued forwards and arrived at the section that had killed me so many times before. But waiting for me this time was a yellow drop, which has an Ascendant AR blueprint inside. Further on, I tried to get the aggro of the mass in this horrible section, and I lured them back where I could jump up on my grapple and take them all out. With the dire bears, Palovias and wolves cleared, I grappled my way through and somehow narrowly avoided a Polovia pounce, which would have been very costly this far in. I took out the remaining creatures in this section and moved forwards to the big wide open area, where I could just Tarzan my way across, avoiding everything on the ground. In the next section, I suspended myself from the ceiling with a grapple again, and began to slowly take out each creature, and this was quite quickly burning through all of my ammo that I had brought. With everything killed, I was able to move forward and loot this red drop. I killed what I thought were the final few creatures at the cave, and grappled into the final room, only to be stunned by a Polovia at the very end. Yet, for some reason, it refused to jump in the water and finish the job, so I was able to grapple myself to safety and began clearing out the remaining few creatures in the cave. Then I was finally able to collect the artifact, the last one on the map, and I had now completed all 10 caves available. Now I just had to get out, which wouldn't be too easy, as near the entrance to the cave I was stunned by a Polovia and killed. With my death being so close to the entrance though, I ran in to try and get my things, but I died many times. My plan was to try and lead the creatures away so I could safely get my stuff, and after a lot of death I got lucky as a Polovia missed me and I was able to lead them all to the other end where I would let them kill me. I spawned back in one final time and collected my things, where all I had to do now was to outrun this single Polovia and I would be safe. And I did it, as I got to my ferry safe and sound and then quickly left. I got to base and safely stored the artifact and came to the realisation that all I had to do now was complete the 3 bosses on the island and then to take on the Overseer. On day 82 I went out farming metal, so I could begin to make all the saddles needed for the boss Rexes. Then I went out to find myself a Rhino-Nachtha. I could transport the Rexes to the obelisk, but I could only find male ones and these guys can't impregnate your creatures, so I had to kill them. On day 84 I went out with my Rex to look for more Rhinos. The first one I found had a rubbish level, but it was a female, and the second one I found was slightly better, so I began to kill it. Before it got too low I consumed the pheromone on my Rex and then waited for it to impregnate it. As soon as it did I tried to get my Rex back to base, but it ended up giving birth out in the wild, but as it did I claimed my very first Rhino-Nachtha baby. I got the Rhino back to base safe and sound and began to imprint it whilst hatching up the remaining few boss Rexes. At the end of the day it was fully grown, so I equipped it with the Ascendant saddle I had gotten from the swamp cave earlier and took it out for a test spin. But I still needed one more creature for the boss fights, a Uti, so I flew out to the snow and the first one I found I tamed as its level wasn't really too important to me. I dropped it into a small trap and then knocked it out. Whilst it tamed I took on an Alpha Rex which was nearby with my shotgun, before I returned to a tamed Uti who I picked up and flew back to base. Once back I began flying out my Rexes to the Green Obelisk, as I planned to do the Broodmother first. And by the end of the next day the Rexes were all there at the obelisk. Before I started the fight though, I made more shotgun ammo and repaired my shotgun before I flew my Uti over to the boss arena. With everything there, it was time to summon in the Broodmother. We teleported to the arena and I quickly hopped on my Uti. Sent in the Rexes onto the big spider. I used my coverage roar from the Uti to give my Rexes a small boost that they would hopefully need. And things seemed to be going quite well, as we were able to get the boss down to almost 50% health relatively quickly. And not long later, as I helped with my shotgun, my Rexes were able to defeat their very first boss, the Gamma Broodmother. One of the new updates in Acer meant that now once you defeated a boss, a loot crate would spawn which had all the loot inside, which made it so much easier to collect. As I checked my Rexes, I saw that quite a few had a nice amount of levels to be added, as I didn't really level these guys up before the fight, and I just used the XP that they got passively from living. Once we got teleported back to the overworld, I immediately began the process of bringing the Rexes over to the Blue Obelisk to fight the Megapithecus, a process which ended up taking a couple days. After placing on my fur armour, I was now ready to take on the Big Monkey on day 90. Once inside the arena, I got on my Uzi and whistled the Rexes to move further back from the start. This is because you want to fight the monkey as far away as possible from this hole, where your Rexes can actually fall down and then instantly die. So I went over to the monkey, got his attention and brought him back to my Rexes. Once he was close enough, I unleashed hell on the boss and used my coverage roll to help give my guys a little bonus. After a couple shots of my assault rifle, the monkey was down and defeated, and it was over quite quickly considering how good my Rexes weren't. I got the loot from the boss and checked my Rexes to see some of them had got a few more levels, which should prove beneficial in the dragon fight. Once I was out, I began to fight them all down to the red obelisk, and after 5 days of moving and letting them gain up XP, I was now ready to fight the dragon on day 95. Some of my Rexes now had 30k health and around 650% melee, whilst others were slightly worse. But with everything ready, it's now time to summon in the Gamma Dragon. Right, and we're in. Let's get on the UT. I need to get the guys over there, because I need to make it so they don't get hit by the meteor strike things. So get the guys over there, and I'm going to try and get the aggro so that he shoots the fireballs at me and not the Rexes. I think that's the plan. I'll also get a couple... Oh, there we go. He's shot a fireball. Oh, and he summoned in all the PTs. Okay, I'm going to have to go back to the Rexes for this. Help, guys. Please, help. Oh, he's done another fireball. Help me. Help. Why? The PTs are only going for me. I need the Rexes to get them. Oh, he's damaging them Rexes a lot already with the fireballs. Right, guys, help. I want to turn on toggle numbers quickly, yeah, so we can see how much damage we're actually doing. Oh, it's landed. Okay, right. Just get in. Let's just start. Oh, he does a lot of damage. Alright, hopefully that coverage helps. I'm going to start shooting with my shotgun. I need to do as much damage as possible, because... Oh, if I fail here, this challenge is done. Oh, no. Oh, we've lost our first Rex. That's not good. And it's only halfway. Oh, and we've lost another. Oh, and third, 4, 5. Oh, that's not good, I don't think. Hey? Is that a 6 that's just died? Okay. How has that hit me? Yeah, that was. I think that was 6 Rexes that I've just lost, and we're only halfway through. That's not good going. Alright, please land. Alright, come on guys, it's landed. Actually, no, wait, I don't want them to fight in the lava. Alright, it's there, just go. Oh, we've lost another already. Just get it, guys, please. Please get it. I need some coverage for all these guys. I think they look like they need the boost. Oh, it does so much damage. It's another, what was that? Another 3 Rexes that I just lost. Oh, come on, guys, please. It's getting low. Please do it. Come on, please. I think we're gonna do it actually. I think, yeah, this is looking good. Come on, I need a couple more hits. Go on, go on. Let's go. That That's a W, but we lost a lot of Rexes. Oh, we did lose a lot. What's these guys' healths looking like? Oh, 5k. What's yours? 7. Oh, this isn't good. 2.6. Oh, no. Oh, that's not good. Alright, let's quickly get the loot drop before we teleport out. We took down the hardest of the 3 bosses and teleported out, only to find that my best Rex didn't even enter the fight at all. Back at base, I began raising up a small Therizino army, as well as getting some more Rexes to replace the ones that I just lost in the dragon fight. Whilst they grew up, I went out to look for a Carcharodontosaurus, and found one walking amongst the snowy mountain. I killed some creatures and brought it some food, and began the taming process. I then brought it a Carno. Then it accidentally aggroed onto me and it chased me up the mountain. Once it had calmed down, I brought it a couple more Carnos and it was finally ready to be ridden. I hopped on its back and began the taming process further, as I went on a murderous spree trying to get the taming bar up to 100%. After killing one final Argy, it was tamed. I then tried to pick it up with my Rhino, but it turns out they're slightly too big to be picked up. Next, I did a bit of loot drop hunting, looking for any final loot, and began to make my last load of gunpowder at base to turn into shotgun shells. I finally brought the Carcharodontosaurus home and leveled it up on some fresh baby Rexes. Next I leveled up the Rexes that I just raised as well as the Theris, and then brought the whole squad over to the tech cave entrance. I decided this time I would use rafts to help cover the lava to make things easier, but then the fog rolled in and visibility literally was 0. Back at base I made some final shotgun ammo, farmed some fibre so I could craft these 2 fur blueprints, and collected all the soups and stuff that I was going to need from my fridge. I took one last look around my base, one that had served me so well with all the Alpha Raptors, Rexes and Alpha Rex surprises that it threw my way. And this is where it is on the map if anyone's interested. Then it was time to head over towards the volcano. I made my way down the central river and then found an otter, which I tamed as I realised I hadn't gotten one since I last lost my otter in the lava cave. I ran up the side of the volcano and into the bowl where I saw my army waiting for me. With the tributes in the terminal, it was time to start the tech cave. First I walked in my Carcharodontosaurus, but it seemed that it didn't fit anymore, which it did do on the previous edition. But it still did, thankfully. I just had to get the angles right. I then ran back up to bring in the first line of Rexes, hoping that the new AI pathfinding would make everything easier. Next to follow were the Therizinos, then the second line of Rexes, lastly followed by the third and final line of Rexes. I did one last check to make sure everything had gotten in, which it had, and ran back down to start clearing out the cave. I got on my Carcharodontosaurus and began to chomp on all the hostile mobs. But I did use my shotgun on the Arthropleuras for obvious reasons. My Carcharodontosaurus was quickly ploughing through all the Megalos, Allos, Utis and Rexes that this cave had to offer, and even when its health got low, it would just quickly regenerate thanks to the frenzy feature that does so. This feature also meant that the further into the cave I got, the easier it would get, as each kill meant I did more and more damage. And by the end of the cave, my frenzy level was at 100 and I was doing over 700 damage with certain bites. Not long later, I took down the final few creatures in the cave and step 1 was done. But before starting the Overseer fight, I had to run all the way back up and bring the rest of my army down, and I did this on my UT in case there were any leftover behaviours who were still burrowed so that they wouldn't pounce me. Thankfully there wasn't, as I reached the top and brought down the entire line of Therizinos. I hope that the new AI pathfinding would make this process a lot easier, as I did have quite a lot of issues with this when ARK Survival evolved. With the Therizinos, the only issue I had was once where they turned back on themselves, but other than that they all got down safely. Next up were the Rexes though, and those were the ones I had real doubts about. On the first trip down I decided to only bring 2, and it did go super smoothly, so the next time I brought down double the amount. I brought down 4, but this time it didn't go as well. As one of the Rexes walked off the edge, it did try to get back onto the land, but it fell off and down into the lava, where it would die. Thankfully though, I got the remaining 3 Rexes down to the bottom safe and sound. Next I brought down 5 more Rexes. I got to the same part as before, and this time I was able to get them all through, but I did have a bit of a funny moment where I thought one would walk off. But it was at the very next turn where I ran into more issues. As I got round, one of the Rexes walked off the edge and down into the lava. I'd lost another Rex. Or so I thought, as I got round the corner and spotted it. The Rex that I thought had just died was still on the edge. I whistled it over and somehow, miraculously, it was able to walk over the lava and landed back onto the path where I was. And our count was back up to 5 Rexes. I then got this whole group safely down to the bottom and returned to the top once more to get the UT and final Rexes. And this time they all got down to the bottom without a problem. A quick thank you to War Thunder, today's sponsor. Available on PC, Xbox and PlayStation for free, War Thunder is a must play today. Make sure to use my link in the description to get yourself some free goodies to help you conquer the battlefield. So make sure to check out War Thunder today. I got everything over to the teleporter pad except the Carcharodontosaurus as they don't fit any further. And with everything ready on the pad, I teleported over to the Overseer, only to then crash as we teleported into the area. Miraculously though, I launched the game to find myself on my UT at the bottom of the tech cave, which meant the rollback wasn't too far and I was able to get back up onto the summoning pad and re-teleport once again. But I did notice that there was like a red fog and I had doubts that the game had secretly just changed this to the alpha fight, which I would have had no chance of doing. But rest assured, it was still Gamma. I got all my creatures over to the Overseer arena without a crash this time. And then I checked out the cool boss viewing areas, which had now changed to like a more pixely looking thing, which I thought looked quite cool. I moved forward and collected a couple of the explorer notes which were present in the chamber, and then I got the ferries over to the loot drop spawning room, and stopped just before the entrance to the fight. I then ran all the way back to get the Rexes, and then brought everything into the final room, ready to take on the Overseer. Alright, come on Mr. Overseer, let's have you. Right, get all the guys there. Can they attack it yet? Oh, no, he's in his like protected thing, I think. Yeah. Oh, and here spawn all of the defenders. Wait, are all my Rexes down there? No, there's still. How's there still some up there? I guess we'll go get them whilst those guys try and fight the Overseer. What are you guys stuck on? I thought I did whistle all follow when I got into the go. I guess not. Right, are they all coming? The Overseer's shield's down. Right, let's fight. Oh, just need to avoid the electronic spike things. Oh, it's already done. Right, what's our first boss? It's over there. Right, guys, over this way, please. It's the monkey. Go on. Right, let's give these guys a little bit of a courage roar. Go on, get past me, please. Oh wow, we are doing damage. It's almost down at half health already. Go on, guys. Go on. They didn't even need my coverage draws, and they've already done it. Let's go. Honestly, these guys, they do no damage, I don't think. These guys are just so annoying. Alright, give you some more coverage roll, guys, and... Wait, will they attack the Overseer as soon as it unshields? I think they should. Yeah, he's unshielding now. Avoid those. Guys, get that, please. Get it. I guess I'll shoot myself as well. Right, avoid that. Good, good. Get a couple shots in here. Avoid that. Good. I think he's still yet to get me with those shocks. I need to take out the flying guys. They're so annoying. But not right now. Alright, are we able to get it down? Come on. Wait, is it changing? Oh, it's just summoning in more of the defenders. I thought it was going to change to the next boss there. Right, shoot it, guys, please. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Oh, we're done. It's already... What's it? Where is it? It's over there, and it's... Oh, it's the dragon. Oh, it's the dragon. Guys, please, you need to be on this. This is going to do damage. Oh, it's already done. It's fire breath. Oh, no. Wait, why? Don't fight the defenders. Fight the dragon. Please. Please. That way. Go on. Oh, this... I don't like the dragon. This is where the ferry should come and clutch, as this is the only reason I brought them. But oh, we've actually smashed it, to be fair, and it's already down. Go on. Oh, I'm taking these guys out. I hate them. I don't think they do any damage to me. They're just annoying. I can't even hit them. What? There we go. Okay, right, guys, get it, get it. Come on. So the next one should be the Broodmother, then one last one. Oh, I didn't mean to fall off. It's done. Okay, guys. Right. All three bosses have spawned right there. Let's get it. Go on. I think... Oh, my Rex don't look that bad. I see a bit of blood. But, guys, get it? Hello, team? Can you fight? What's happening? Right, there we go. Yeah, I just beg that the next one's not the dragon again. I hate the dragon. I don't want to fight it twice. I'm not sure my guys will survive. Right, it's already down to halfway. Come on. Wait. I've already lost the Therizino. Alright, that's down. I did not expect the Therizino to die first. Right, can we get rid of these? Right, they're done. Right, we are so close to doing this. One more boss fight. Right, it's unshielded. Get it, guys, please. And I've been stunned. Great. Come on, and again. Come on, only a few more shots, guys. Please help. My Rex is just... They just all missed it. So close, come on. How much health does it need left to go to the fourth boss? Oh, stunned again. Wait, is it changing? No, it's summoning. Oh, it's summoning in more defenders. Right, here we go. Go on. What is it? Please. What is that? Oh, it's the dragon. Oh no, it's the dragon. Oh no, that's the worst one. Right, please, guys. Oh, I've already lost the Therizino. Come on, boys, send it. Please. Go on. Oh, go on. How did they get rid of it that quickly? Oh, my team. What a team. Come on. Overseer's almost gone. Go on. Oh, it's still shielded. Okay. Oh, we are so close. Come on. There we go. Go on, get it. Get it. Let's go. We've done it. The Overseer on ARK Survival Ascended it is down. Oh, wow, that feels good. And we've done it. What a team this is. What a team. I don't know how I've lost 2 Ferrozinas in that, but oh, these guys are absolutely battered and bruised. Oh, he's only got 900 health. Yours are not too bad. Oh wait, I need to get the ascension. Right, let's get everyone in there as well. They deserve to come with me. Oh, I'm not going to be able to get the explorer and everything. That doesn't matter. Go on, let's get this ascension. What a team this is. Right, let's enjoy this cutscene.
Is this what happiness felt like? Love? No. This is more like pride. Yes, that's it. I'm proud of you, Survivor. You've accomplished what few have. You've ascended. I once did too, when I was her. Helena. She was an explorer too. And like you, she traveled the arcs and discovered their secrets. You're following in her footsteps. Keep going. Discover what became of Helena and her friends. Survive the many challenges ahead, and you'll find me here waiting for you. Together, we may yet be able to save our world.
And it is done. 100 days in ARK Survival Ascended is done. I spent so much time making this, rushing since the day of release. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe and comment. And if you want me to try a 200 days where I take on the alpha, let me know, because I will definitely do that if the demand is there for it. I will have my next video out in hopefully the next couple of weeks. I'm doing 100 days on ARK Survival Ascended with only trikes. And I'm not stealing this idea with Rampy. In fact, I'm on a server playing it with him. He is doing only raptors, I'm doing only trikes, and we plan to get that out by the end of the month at the latest. So I'll see you all guys for that. So before I go, if you remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and if you want to see more, definitely stay around because I will have more and more content coming with ARK Survival Ascended. See you in the next one.